Okay. Have our, and you just can introduce yourself as what your name is, and maybe you feel comfortable where you are, why you're here. Yeah. So again, we'll start with Doug.
So I'm Doug Adams. I am one of the members of the authority, the ex officio position representing them.
I'm Noy.
Cool. Noy is one of our regular attendees.
Oh, I'm Jolie. One of the getting to the. I'm Marissa. I'm Natalie. Who originally was CPO and yeah,
I'm Lloyd University. I'm from Honolulu. What do you do?
Hanoi Koi'inoa. This is Emma Hawaii. We're here. We haven't been out a lot, so we want to be more involved in everything for Mama, for people, for Aina, and Hawaii's people up on the map. And our cousin Kua, everyone knows Kua, my cousin, my Ohana from Waimea, had helped us. We went out together in 2000 and 2013, right before all of this. We just want to make the baby children a little more learn and support.
Thank you. John DeFries, Mauna Kea Authority.
Gabriel Kubi, I am the Executive Director of Canada Transformer Telescope. The reason I'm here is because I took care of the banana. And as an astronomer, I feel committed to understand what has happened and how we can move forward and try to define together a better future for us.
Hello, Rudy Spencer.
Hello, well, just concerned you on.
Your phone, Montana's, who's member?
Hello, everybody, Doug Simon, Director of Regulations.
Beth Roney DeYoung, born and raised in Milwaukee.
Hello, I'm Bill Stormont. I'm on the staff of the Institute of Those that are growing. We asked if we can do a bit on that, chance to share a little bit about that next.
Well, work here at Tech Observatory as the community relations coordinator. You're as the herald, the lead electrician in Tech Household Summit. People
Bonnie Irwin, member of the authority in Chester, Virginia.
that's from the project manager for this.
Well, I'm Mary Wong Wilson. I am a member of the authority and also one of the, and I live here.
What I'm gonna do soon is turn this over to John DeFries.
You didn't introduce yourself.
Well, I'm John DeFries.
And, oh,
And when?
Lohako, my name is Wa'ena. I am also a Kia'imona from like 2015. I am the executive assistant to the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority and the first employee and the sound guy, so don't mind me, I'm hiding in the background.
So I'm John Twomey, the chair of the Mauna Kea. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna turn this over to John to sort of lead us through tonight, but before we do that, I kind of feel silly saying this, but I actually want to have us establish some sort of protocol or whatever as we move forward, yeah. And it's just really simple things. One of them is not so simple for myself, but things such as we want one speaker to speak at a time. We want to be respectful, let everybody finish what they have to say. We also want us all to be respectful to each other with words, body language, and tone of voice as we speak. The last time we had this meeting was a great meeting because everybody was respectful. We talked about some really difficult issues, but yet nonetheless it was done very respectfully, respecting everybody's opinion. And the third is that this is the one that's hard for me. You want to listen for understanding, not for a response. So in other words, you want to listen to other people, not to figure out how you will respond to them because you don't agree with them, but try to listen to them so you understand them. You don't have to agree, but at least try to listen to understand how the other person is speaking. So with those sort of general guidelines, I'm gonna ask John to lead us.
I didn't hear a word you said.
Yes, great.
Thank you, John. So I became the executive director for the authority back in April. And so it's been 5 months. Part of my attraction to the role, the leadership role, is like all of you have a respect and a love for the mom. At this stage of my life, we're not classmates. So at this stage of my life, being accountable to the mama felt right. And because I know deep down that it will test everything all of us have learned in our lives. This may be the toughest assignment for me in my life, and you may feel the same way as well. And it's the complexity of it that is of interest. The act that created, the law that created the authority has a number of responsibilities built into it. Immediately when we go out to talk with people, there's a tendency for the topic to immediately go from you're the Mauna Kea Authority, let's talk about TMT. Right? And for us on the staff, it's not that easy because we actually have to, I made this comment in the meeting today. When you work inside a government bureaucracy, that in itself is a challenge. When you're creating one, like we're having to do now, it's even more difficult. And so there's a whole range of things that we have to get done before we can even talk about TMT or the astronomy or Mana'o that all of you have. And so in line with what our chairman shared with you, whatever your Mana'o is about Mauna Kea, embrace it, hold it, protect it, continue to advocate for it. But I would also ask you to take time to teach and share that Mana'o that you hold so deeply. And the third element is that we all need to work on increasing our capacity to be empathetic so that we can listen better. that we can learn from others. And because we're gonna need one another to move through this. And, albeit there's a tendency for the general public to jump from the Mauna Kea Authority to astronomy. One of the first important hires we made actually has nothing to do with astronomy. He actually has a career in natural resource management and conservation. And I want to introduce Bill Stormont, who started back in early July. Yeah.
Interrupting.
Please.
So the reason we're having these meetings, because for some of you is the first time that you're coming to this, it's quite unusual for a government agency to do a review, because that's what we are, as the authority. And so normally, as you know, we have our monthly meetings, and if you've ever been to one of the most boring things that you can experience, but that's because there is this process that we have to go through. Really, there's no getting around the process that we have to go through. But what's really important about authority that I think you hopefully witness as we move along is that we want to make sure that there is ample and significant avenues for this kind of just talk, story, and exchange. For people to come to a more informal setting, albeit sometimes we're told, I can see this, you know, this is out of the ordinary, you shouldn't be doing this, but we as an authority know this is exactly what we should be doing to open avenues for us to be able to talk story with people who are interested in learning and talking story to us along the way. It's not the only time that it is an additional time for us as authority members to hear what people in the community are thinking, or just have conversations that we don't have to follow Robert's rules for, or any of the other restrictions that we have. So I just wanted to make that really clear, because we're hoping to do this every quarter, right? That's our intention. And while we started here on Hawaii Island, because that's important, eventually we intend to go to the other islands so that people don't have to fly over here in order to participate in something like this. It should be the way government works, right? To be more open and be able to communicate with it. Opportunity to exchange. So yeah, okay, so I just wanted to lay that out. And so you continue, sorry, you see speaker of the moment.
Thank you, Noe. And it should be noted that even before Act 255, in summer, fall of 2021, there was a working group that actually recommended to the legislature that an authority be created. And that preceded the law. And Noe was a member of that working group. Bonnie Irwin was a member of that working group. Lana Kila, who's not with us this evening, but is on the board, is on that working group. And that document is what is the seed from which the authority grew. So thank you for that. And be clear that Noe has been correcting me since 1974. So back we go. So, and I don't even want your pain in. She was 12. She was 12. But that's how far back some of these relationships go, and for which I'm extremely grateful, obviously. But I also wanted to introduce Bill Stormont, who has a understanding of the mountain that he has brought to the authority immediately, and that in a previous life was actually the director of the Office of Mauna Kea Management. at the time housed, here at the university. And, he has been a DLNR. I'll let him explain his background. And we're extremely fortunate to have him as a member, senior member of the team. So, Bill?
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. And thank you all for being here. I offer that thanks to you folks as well. Started to start, I was born in Honolulu, but raised here in Hilo. My mother's family is from the east side of this island in the lands of Tamaki, just north of Pakalao. I have 3 younger brothers. They were all born here in Hilo, so we are a long time Hilo family. And very close. My association with Mauna Kea started at a young age. We weren't able to show. I had a few pictures lined up for it, helping with some. We had some technical difficulties, but there's one that I'm like this tall for Mauna Kea. Somewhere around 1969, 1970, somewhere in there. In high school, between my sophomore and junior years, I worked in the Youth Conservation Club here on Hawaii Island. And did a lot of work on Mauna Kea back then. So there was a cool picture in there too of it. That planted the seed in me of what appeared to be a really fruitful and wonderful, has turned out to be so, career in natural resources management. Off to the mainland, go get the piece of paper, says I can be a forester, come back, get a job with the state starting in 1986. So nearly 40 years ago, I've been working for 40 years, I've been working as a professional natural resource manager, Hawaii Island. Most of that with the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. Various roles. In 1990, I became the manager of the Natural Area Reserves program here on Hawaii Island, and one of those is the Mauna Kea Ice Age Natural Area Reserve. As I was doing that, as I was doing that work and enjoyed it very much, I was watching what was happening with Mauna Kea, and fast forwarding, there was the creation of the Office of Mauna Kea Management, and I got a lot of encouragement to apply and become the first director of that office in 2001. And I did that through 2008 at the university, and I met Doug Simon and many other folks that I'm reconnecting with now in the endeavor of astronomy on Mauna Kea. I left that job in 2008 with some unfinished business, quite frankly. It was an interesting time. We were having our first conversations with the TMT folks from Caltech at that time, 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. But over that period of my life, I really got to know Mauna Kea more from a physical standpoint, at least. I knew the mountain, or I know the mountain pretty well physically. I've had a chance to be on a lot of really neat places all across the mountain. John was remarked some time ago a little bit about how I included that in the cover letter of my application, how I think the mountain receives me. And I feel comfortable on the mountain if I approach it properly. And I try to do that, and when I offer opportunities to take visitors to the mountain, I do it in a way that I think they enjoy and have a good experience on the mountain, and I appreciate that I can do that, and I feel that way about being on Mauna Kea. I have a background I'm a plant nerd by nature. I enjoy the plants, the ecosystems, and so that's been driving much of my career. I've done a lot of different work with DLNR, but then this opportunity came up, and of course I'm watching what's going on with the mountain and the working group and the subsequent legislation and the opportunity for staff employment with it. And yeah, people were saying, bro, you sure you want to do that? You never learned your lesson. I got a lot of different comments from friends of mine about this opportunity to go back to the mountain. But I seized it, and I'm really happy to be part of the group that's going to work with the community to work towards better care of the mountain overall. Because in my mind, it starts there. We take care of the mountain, everything will flow. And that could be a lot, that definition could be a lot of things to a lot of people, but in my mind, if we're taking care of it, then other good things will come in our community. I'm really driven by it being a community resource. And I want to make sure that that is how I go forward with my work with you. Thank you, John,
Thank you.
and thank you all.
And we just had people walk in from Waynell, so it's good, no, we anticipated too, but you may, everyone introduce themselves, so, Mike, you would introduce. Fully and,
Oh, I did it on the wheel, I'm just looking. My name is Paul Bergman, I come from my mill. My dad is stated there in the former PG. Francine and Hanzi. Fortunate enough for Ohana, we were raised on the flank of Mauna Kea, and I now call it Kamapu. That island is a place that my grandfather raised all of us, and that we still maintain and take care of today. We have since established another stronghold in the island called Kamapu, again on the flanks of Mauna Kea. It has been the kuleana of ours in our ohana to malama and to help to maintain ecosystem in those two places. And more especially recently, as a Waiji ohana as well, it's become very important for us to recognize that to be on the ocean, it matters that we understand how important the land base is. And so we started to reestablish forest in an area that hasn't had forest for over 200 years. And I'm really happy to say that you are starting to nest again in these trees that have not been there for some time. I'm currently on MKSOA, as I love how great it's that. There's a ring to that. As lineal descendant. And I am grateful to have been, I'm grateful to sit in that seat currently. That also though does not, I don't take it lightly. I also cannot say that I totally understand exactly what it means. In the sense that everybody get put on 20 degrees level. Right? Everybody's family is connected, not just to Mauna Kea, but to all of our homes and to all of our islands. And so because of that, from the front door of our house, Kamoku, Waimea, where Ohana has been pili to that mountain, where a quiet ceremony was done and taken and had and kept for many, many years, because of the pili to that place, to the people. That's a common thing. I think that the space and the place that we're creating continues to be defined. And every time we get ready to have these meetings, I always think to myself, what is it that you share tonight that is important? I think the one thing that is important for me to say is that I like in this journey of where we currently are as we work toward the transition with a Mauna at the center, Mauna Kea at the center. I look at that imagery and I see that, and I compare it to the birth of the Queen, and I compare it to the birth specifically of the Queen. Not because we built it, but because it's taken 30 years this year for us to potentially reach a stride that we're happy with. But no, we still gotta grow. And that over 30 years, there's been a lot that we've had to experience to be able to be at a place where we're at now. But I perceive and I believe in every part of me that that's what it takes for anything to grow. As you put it today, right? Wow, and yourself with passion. And so to start anything has to take you to let the stock can go. I think that that's where we are right now. Trying to help you to maturate to go. So That's- Um,
Hello, my couple. Hello, Chero Mohi Paixão, no Hano Mai Lama Oahu Alua. Mount Beverly Hills. My name is Chero Mohi Paixão. Before the line of Oahu, specifically in area for program. It's on the west side. Third road. And it's the side. And actually. Compromise. On the part. Actually. We heard it right now. See how long the night is. Man, and yeah, is on that. The deck of voyaging things that will always be able to bring us home. It allows us to see from another perspective and to practice with another perspective. That, whether we stand on the moment, whether we stand on the movement, whether we stand on the law. Physically, it is possible. What we sense of the law. 50 years ago, when hopefully I was launched. Opportunity.
Hi, my name is Tram. I'm from, Houston, Texas. I lived here about 17 years now. I own a salon here in, Hilo. And because I own a salon, I'm able to hear all the stories from all walks of life. All of my clients. They say when you want to hear gossip, you go to a salon, right? But, because I have a salon and I have the privilege to hear stories from all walks of life, I get to relate and connect, and then I've learned a lot of wisdom from my community. And I apologize for being late. I just found out about this like literally 30 minutes ago. My client right there just shared it with me. You know, and I've been going to a lot of these like community meetings and stuff like that. And I just recently was one at the U of H. So when she sent it to me, she sent me a picture. It did the U of H. So I went straight to U of H. And I was like, wait, once I got there, I didn't see a building number. And then the guy was like, oh, show me all right. Oh, I didn't know that this place exists. So that's why I'm late. I'm sorry. I apologize. But so one of the reasons why I attend a lot of these meetings is because I started a nonprofit here too. And my nonprofit is called Nature's Greatest Outcomes. And what our mission is to empower individuals. And how do we do that? We connect people in the community. And because I have a salon, I get to meet all types and walks of life. And I get to meet from like attorneys to doctors, but also to just an ordinary local person, or even someone that, you know, crazy, but people that works in the hospital that deals with all kinds of stuff, and even someone that just walked out of BISAC, you know, and some of my clients that has been with me since they were like probably 6 to 7 years old, and I've known them and they have kids and stuff like that, and the struggles that they go through, and they'll come to me and say, I haven't seen you in a long time. And they're like, oh, I just got out of BISAC through, you know, mental substance and, you know, going through, and then lots of like male clients too that, you know, got out of anger management classes and stuff like that. So I get to hear all the stories and relate. And then I'll also learn a lot from the kupunas, you know, where they shared with me that, you know, in the Hawaiian culture, like when they give birth to babies, they take the fecal and then they, you know, put it into the ocean because it protects, you know, from bad things and stuff like that. And so I meet them sharing like, you know, where they explain like how the culture is and stuff. And then I relate a lot of that to like my culture. And then I'll hear another Kupuna sharing that that's where the land and the land and the ocean meets. And it's so profound, like the culture and the meaning, how deep it is. It's just like what these two people were just sharing, you know, like how it's the connection and the point of like the mountain and the land and the sea and the land and just understanding. And so I want to be able to use people's wisdoms, everybody's wisdoms, and share and connect and teach it to the younger generations and letting them understand the profound meaning behind so much more. And so I'm like that connected there, and hopefully, and I've been going to a lot of these unity meetings and everything. Like everybody's so amazing, but I often wonder to myself, like, how can we actually get more people and scratch them where they're actually itching? Because I feel like there's many leaders, that's great. How can we really reach those ones that's really itching and knowing where they're itching, and we can scale at a very high level? And so that's why I'm here, just to connect with more leaders.
Thank you. So going back to the opening comments by our chairman, we're here to listen. The Mauna Kea Authority has 4 staff people, myself, Lloyd, Bill, and we report to a 12-member board, and tonight 6 of those board members are here. Doug, John, Noi, Omai, Bonnie Irwin, and Neil Hannes. Okay, and so we're gonna shift gears here and open it up for a conversation. So if you feel moved to contribute, the board is here to listen, the staff is here to listen, and we're grateful that you're here. So thank you. So whoever feels moved to speak, please.
So we have a question, you know, is there a question that you have answered? Like last time we talked about, for example, somebody asked, like, how come we cannot, why do you need a land-based telescope? Right? Why can't you just use the Hubble or something out in space? And someone was able to answer that question. So if there are questions like that, and I don't know if you, some of you weren't here, if you want to hear the answer, we can talk about that. But if there are other questions like that, we want to hear what your concerns are, what you guys are thinking. One of the questions that Neil asked is, you know, we talk about mountain and the Mauna and sustainability and conservation. To you, what does that mean? What would that look like? Conservation of the Mauna. What would that entail? What would that look like in terms of the Mauna? So that's a kind of discussion we'd like to have. I know it's kind of something people get intimidated sometimes about raising questions, whatever, but the whole goal is to be as Anthony Noy said, as transparent and as responsive as we can. And we got the people here that can answer the question. We got an astronomer, somebody from TNT, we got somebody that knows a lot about conservation and the Mauna and how the geographic nature of the Mauna. So open it up for anybody that might have a question.
Yeah, there is some questions I really have had. I stumbled across the County of Hawaii Department of Water Supply plan that they had put forth in 2011. It appears to be like a running document as far as like history, because it's I guess in 1989, 1990, they started really trying to find a master plan for the use of our water on our moku. And of course they go island with the commission. But I guess what I was led to bring here tonight, because I haven't been involved, but that has to do with a lot of things. And then so now I can feel in my na'au when it's time to come. So that's why I'm here, because for some reason I have to wait. And I feel like and everything feels like it's time for something to come out that I have had in my heart, and since we've been doing the work, he was a small baby. So, and I'm glad because she's a teenager-ish and she doesn't really like to come with me everywhere. And she also was like to say, sure, mom, I'll come to Kahakaula. And so all of those things are meaningful because then you know and you can share. So then I can feel like me stumbling across this Department of Water Supply document while I was kind of looking at something else that's led to the other night, which has projections out to 2025, which should be expiring this next coming year, which means that there probably should be analyzing their data in regards to the projections, and seeing if all of these, there's all these words and all these verbiage, but our aquifers is what I'm really trying to get at, because all of our malas hold all of this water. And I know there must be a vault somewhere between all of these meetings that there's been testimony after testimony regarding all of the concerns, right? So there is like just this beautiful wealth of some things and knowledge in all of these sharings. But I wanted to touch base back up to the water, which I know there's a lot that has been said, but for some reason, I think the question needs to be asked as the function of our mountains in relation to our water sources, and the water source being that substance for our life. How is our, well, now we have this group, which is great. How are you folks gonna be focusing in on that primary function and working with the commissions and the Department of Water Supply to ensure that the aquifers are maintained and that, of course, whatever construction, blah, 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 and then the military right underneath, and how are we all gonna work on making sure that the water is conserved? Because there are a lot of developments coming out, there's development going to be proposed, and it's just immense. And how can it be that all of our aquifers, which are designated aquifers, they're not supposed to be moved yet? They're not supposed to be taken from one to give to the other, and in an immense scale of more production, more overdevelopment, more systems, and then all of this, infrastructure that, so how are we gonna be able to sustain and maintain what we have left in terms of the aquifers and the water supplies without moving the waters and moving them all over the place and securing, well, this is Mauna Kea, so there's two main holders of water, which is running Waimea and then get all of our hama. So how is that all?
So we're lucky because we're gonna have a general answer and a more specific answer about Mauna Kea. But Neil Hannah's actually just ended his term as a water
You
commissioner.
guys saw that. Oh, well, I guess that's why we're here.
Well, mahalo for asking the question. And in my 8 years in the Water Commission, not surprised. The Hawaiian community, only combined, they understand, they get it. They get that our life depends on water. And when we received testimony, the Water Commission said, our meetings are easy, hour, 2 hours, 1 hour, hour and a half, and so forth. We 8 hours, 12-hour hearings. And largely attended by Hawaiians who testified on the issue. Concerned, not only with concern, but with wisdom, a couple of our ancestors, and with real recommendations to what we need to do. This water is a regional issue in a sense here. I mean, this side we don't have a problem. Is the forest you're growing. I remember when we stepped on that land and we looked across the Waimea Plain, it says, and we saw the old coming in, it says it had nothing to grab. Because man has affected what was a dense forest and made it grass. And so that old has nothing to grab, it's not gonna rain. We caused that. We did that. But we can change that. Hawaii is changing that, and the district change that. When you manipulate the aquifers, like you say, It's a taking feet of Big Hall and so forth. You know, you may get more development, you may serve more need and so forth, but you may not be doing the right thing for those aquifers. And, in terms of the long-term sustainable yield and their ability to keep that, not, because it's not just for our generation. This is for every generation that follows us. So that's an issue, and that's going on right now. That's before the Water Commission, by mail, you know, and the whole Waikoloa area
Yes.
it's on the table. It's not just effects up there, it's affecting what they do up there is going to affect Waikoloa. And so forth. So we're paying attention, the issues are there, and the whole community needs to, not the whole community needs to step up and address that. The other thing is that the public, so you gotta think about what the land needs, not just what we need. And so we said in-stream, the commission says in-stream flow standard, to say, before we start dividing this up amongst us, what does the stream need? What to sustain life of that, and provide all sufficient resource so that if there's pathways for the fish and it's a healthy system. They're trying to set those standards. And of course, every time you set it and you take away from people who want it, and so forth, it creates a conflict that has to be brokered and negotiated out at the commission level. So that's the third part of this is, you know, determining and really putting the system first and system health first before you start dividing stuff. The last thing I'll say is, as you do that, then if you don't read your constitution or the water code and so forth, that there are protected uses that we have prioritized as beneficial trusts. Water is held in public trust. It's not for to be owned. It's for all of us. And for these public trust interests and cultural interests are in that hierarchy. And so every time there is a use, there needs to be a high analysis, as is going to be known, to understand, was there a practice here? Is it effective? How's it going to be addressed? So that it does not harm that practice, cultural practice does not harm. In Cornerstone in particular, you have water at different levels, high elevation water, you got dike confined water, you got basal water. So it's not just about how much did you take out, which bucket did you take it out from? And which cultural practices were influenced by that bucket. And it's kind of easy to say, but kind of hard to know what's going on under the ground all the time. And when people are anxious to get things done, they don't want to take the time to study it and to figure it out. They just want to start now. And how come you're delaying development? How come you're delaying economy? How come you're delaying housing that we need? And so forth. Those pressures get put on to accelerate the decision, but sometimes it's at the expense of really understanding, number one, what it's doing to the resource and what it's doing to culture. And so we fight for those things, and the commission's job is to kind of balance all those interests. So those are the broad issues, and we want to make this a whole water, really, so there's a whole other topic, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about it. And I'll be talking next week at the CNHA conference on a panel to discuss these issues, but they're really important. And the role of that mountain, no matter whether the water is actually used by us or not, to really do its job of discharging the aquifer is vital. And we need to, part of putting it first, has been said, really is to understand that that's its role. And we shouldn't be screwing that up.
You want to add something? No, honest.
I'll offer, I'm not a water expert. Thank you, Neil, for that explanation. I really loved it. I do know that specific to Mauna Kea, we know that it's 85% of our weather comes out of the northeast, banks up against the eastern and northeastern side of Mauna Kea. There's a vast area of forest. It's actually quite, it's hard to conceive how much forest there is. If you drive up the center road and you look north at certain points, you look out at a vast area of forest. It kind of tapers down as you get around the corner towards Lahoiho and Omakaho. It's like this big triangle from the Sugarlands, Malka to the tree line. That is receiving an awful lot of rainfall. We know this. 250, 300 inches a year in some places. In that trade wind band where the clouds bang up against that mountain. And that water is captured by that forest in many ways, and it sinks down and recharges the aquifer for that part of the island. It takes a very long time or that water that falls to filter down through the substrate to get to that aquifer a very long time. Oh, sorry, a quick story though, too. I had a friend from the mainland visit. This is many years ago now. He arrived in Kona, stayed at Waikoloa for a few nights, came around the southern end of the island, came to my house, and I lived in Waikea at the time. And we were gonna go backpacking. We're gonna go to Waimanu. We get in the car, we leave, and he's been on the island for 4 or 5 days. We cross the Wailuku River, and he goes, "That's the first running water I've seen." When you think about this island from Waiaka Stream, or we still call Small Cape Town, Root Beer River. If you go south from there through Kona, all the way through South Kona and around through Ka'u, there's no running water. There are no perennial streams. It's just this chunk of the island and Pohawa, where you have perennial running streams. And those are recharge areas that are so vitally important for this island. I worked in the rapid immediate death response work when I was with the Forestry and Wildlife Division for about 4 years. And we came to the conclusion that the best thing we can do in preventing the impact to our native forests was to protect large tracts of them from invasive species, so that if you lose some ohia, the right stuff's coming back. So I add that as part of our watershed protection measures statewide. The biggest thing we can do, the best thing we can do for our forests and our water is to protect those large tracts of land so they continue to provide that function of protecting our watersheds. So it's about the ohia trees, but it's more about the assemblage, those ecosystems that thrive on ohia. Ohia is the keystone species in our forests, statewide, unique in all the world. So that's the bigger effort we all have to be part of in protecting our water.
Let me just add a couple things. Neil was a part of the state council on water resource management. That was the perspective he was talking from. The Department of Water Supply is a county agency. They have a board that operates. They're always looking for members, always, right? And so you can go onto the county website and say, hey, I want to be a member of that board. And then you'll be contacted by the individual in the mayor's office who actually gets back to everybody who's interested in being a member of the county board. And so I'd encourage you to do that, right? The other thing is that they meet monthly, right? So they have minutes. The board has responsibilities to oversee what the department is doing. All of that stuff is out, is open record, and you can get that stuff.
Other question?
I had a comment. Thank you for the little explanation of how the water board, how they try to take and function, priority of the water use. And I like his comment, or I like the way he answered it, because we have to have foundation when we move forward. I was a student at university back in 2014-13, and after we had a little, I guess you could say, awakening from education. We started to dig deeper about concepts of the legal occupation, how much truth for students. We were going to school, we were graduating, and now we're in debt for 50,000, and yet coordination is from the government. When we see this coordination, and we ask ourselves, yes, we do have issues with the way management has gone, whether it's DHL, whether it's DNR, whether it's other state entities. We decided to go up there in Maui in 2015 to get arrested because we believed that there was more at stake than what we were taught and what we were brought up in. So when a few of us got arrested in 2015, 2020, there were people that got arrested young and force. We actually got to go to court, and we got to see that folks coming on the internet after the future court case, this is the presidency to understand that these gaining the hands that yes come out from some of us are heirs to Calvin, Yeah. Yeah. But to see that you in land, you address. By who? By who? Who gets to address? The issue. That's what Neil said, according to the Constitution. Because he's right, Everything has structure, everything has a foundation, everything has a base. And that was the aha moment when you realize that it's more than just us trying to come. It's in our Kumukanapa. So when he says it's in the state legislation constitution, he's referring to the Kumukanapa. From where it stands. And so the university and other agencies, as we look at Mauna Kea, we said, how do we manage it? Well, I think management, it has to have a foundation, which the kind of lays out, but it also has to have what it will to go this. It has to have truth. It has to have some kind of basis. And I think that's why we're having this conversation on, okay, is it a shouting or not? I don't think it should just be that conversation. I think we should be truly talking about the reality. Should the identity of the parcel. It's just like when you buy a house. Is it the genealogy? Who has title? Is it clouded? Is it deed? Does it have heirship to it? And I think that's the proper way. Because if we're just gonna compound and the governor or the state entity start appointing and we all wanna do our best, I think we have to be deeper within ourselves to figure out how we're gonna address something such as a legal occupation, 1993, getting overlapped by DHHL. And now we have the issue that everybody seems to be jumping from space to space. He wants to talk about Constitution, right? And so he's talking about the Constitution, the issue now, right?
Well, the
Some people-
Somebody was written before,
Yeah.
done by us.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
Portions of it was preserved in the Hawaii Constitution.
Yeah, and that's why I appreciate your honesty, because yes, it is preserved, so the reflection that we're talking about, let's not forget about the thing on the life and the essence that it has, its rules and regulations. Because I think only then forward, besides the doors, people mediating the doors and poisoning along the water streams, and all of these things that is taking place on the lower level. That we reach that moment. But if we don't clean up those all the way up, and we don't be honest, right? For instance, YouTube job. So in all its beneficiaries, you say, you don't know it's gone, transition, you know, we come to find out that I don't trust you. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, that's kind of like the role everybody's moving on, right? It's like we want to forget about the independent rights or the heirs or the airships of this movement. And that's where, you know, I didn't come here to, you know, I came here to listen, of course, because now we have this opportunity to listen to experts about water, and then we have these other board members that show up that have different skills sets that they've been achieving over these years. And I just think to myself that it's a perfect opportunity to start from the basics before we start jumping to telescopes. Because just like how you said, we don't want to jump straight from this conversation and get all of it, because there's going to be many moments for that. But I think before we can even get to talk, just like how I talked to we talk before, yeah, to our community, yeah. And I was trying to explain to him that there's a long history of community abuse before we can just jump to solutions or anticipate these dreams, these hopes, this aspiration. Because I think that's when our hearts break. I think that's when community kind of shakes up. And I think that's why we're in this predicament that we are in, because we're trying to go. We never mind. So that's why I just wanted to share that. The way he started it off, I think it's really key to talk about the non-aligned, to talk about the state constitution and its fiduciary duties and obligation that it has felt, that it has reached. And I think that's part of the whole form that a lot of people are using. Because if we can jump towards whichever star we wanna go to, whichever leaning we wanna go to, whichever astronomy, whichever team we wanna go to, but if we don't allow that space, we are
Can I
always.
share something? Like, I wanna, like, thank you for sharing that, because I kind of feel like, you know, like, in my community and hearing a lot of stuff, you know, like, I think a lot of times, like, is there any way that government can, let the people, how would I say that, like, let the people know how transparent the government is? Because, you know, I've been to like several of, the meetings, you know, for the government, and I would go onto the post. They're very like detail oriented. It's the very first time that I went and I saw, there's so, like, there, like earlier, like Doug was sharing on, there, like you could be a member from the Department of Water. And so if you go to the county, there's like all these papers that's listed, it has the time, the date, like every single one. And I actually attended like two of them, and they also, they were very transparent. They had one that was talking about, they have a, director of building department, he came there, the guy from, the police station, like all the heads were there. But can I share with you, I was like the only one like sitting there. This is like an open like meeting, you know, like I didn't even know, you know, but I was like the only one there. So it's almost kind of like I feel government is doing their best that they can. Everything is so transparent, it's there, but people don't know, you know, and not only that, like even I went to another one that they had this BISAC, it was an amazing event. They had like vendors, like all these things for kids, they had it for parents and all this stuff. And it was at the Civic, but it was hosted only once a year. But when you go into there, outside, there's all these food vendors and stuff like that. The main reason why they have this event is because they were trying to reach, to let the community know that there's all these resources. And there was like about 50 to 70 that resources. But most of the people were outside with their food and stuff like that. And they were very good because they did like games and stuff that was inside so the people could come to it. So I think government is trying their best to do what they can. They're very transparent and stuff like that. But I think another thing is that when the communication is not informed correctly, because I would share with you, like I know that at the hospital, and you know, I get to hear so much stories from the community because my clients, like everybody's like telling me all this stuff, you know, and I'm like this person's in that hearing. And so like, even, you know, the hospital, our hospital got a really great donation from, Benioff, I believe. And, you know, it's so funny, one of my clients came in one day and she was like, I asked, oh yeah, so did you kind of hear about all this stuff? And she had her, like, she was like this. And she was like, yeah, I heard, yeah. It's one of those guys, they just trying to show off, you know, like trying to make mom, and you know, like, get credit and stuff like that. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? And so she started telling me, yeah, you know, I heard it around, my friends were telling me that, you know, they're just trying to show off or stuff like that. And I was like, wow, why do you say that? And then she said that, yeah, because I've heard it from my friends. So people were giving her this information, but then luckily I got information from my other client that shared with me. So she said that Benioff has been living under the radar for a long time, in Hawaii. And he's very community oriented and he always helps people. He's really into healthcare and stuff. And he's been living in Hawaii. So it's not like he just came from the mainland. And she was saying, oh, this guy, he was just from the mainland trying to show off and stuff. And then I was like, yeah, my client shared with me that. And then so long story short, when I told that, I'm just glad that I'm a citizen here of Igloo, and here's this guy that's donating the money because it's the benefit of the community. I have kids here and stuff like that. And then so when I shared her that, yeah, he's with us, I gave her that, and then she's like, really? And I was like, yeah. So you know, so it's kind of like the misinformation, one person to the next. So even like Mauna Kea, when I had another client of mine that was sharing with me, when they had that whole thing that was up in the mountains, you know, a lot of people were up there and they were getting arrested. And most of them didn't even know why they were there. They were just like, hey, let's go up there and have a party or stuff like that. But they didn't even know what the real meaning of like why the people are there or the ones that are trying to protect, you know, like the mountains and stuff like that. So it's almost kind of like misinformation. They have like in the Girl Scout, Boy Scout, they have like this activity and they'll go around and people will repeat to each person's ears. And then by the end, like the story like just changes, you know? So it's like, I feel like, you know, like there's resources there, government is doing what there is, you know, because there's so many nonprofits, so many like stuff, you know, now that I started getting into this with my nonprofit, but then as I get to it and I see that the help is there, but people aren't getting it, and then the miscommunication, misinformation, so it's almost kind of like, how can we come together to get the right information?
I don't think I'm talking misinformation, we're talking about illegal occupation and how you.
Oh, no, no, not you, not you.
Yeah, it's kind of off because I think this trying to, keep the flow of the conversation to what Neil was expressing with the laws, and I think this communication is great. And if people want to continue to give great responses to however their specific tools or traits that they've achieved, I'm very open on receive that and learn from everybody.
I interject that also. I actually work in a community as a mental health case manager. I'm not gonna go into detail about who I work for because that's not relevant, but I do want to say that I hear what you're saying regarding the misinformation, but there's also a component of generational trauma that we incurred as a people. So there's a lack of trust in government. And then when you see all of the people coming together, it's not to be misinterpreted that some don't know why they're there. They know why they're there. They may not be able to interpret why they're there the same ways that other people can, because some are stronger than others in that capacity. But we are wounded peoples, and that's why I think there might be a misinterpretation of that. But it's not to say we're not misinformed. Yes, some maybe a percent, because everything is mathematical, and yes, maybe a percentage is misinformed, but a very high percentage are actually generationally wounded and have trauma. And that is what I do in the community, is that I work with these people firsthand. And that's also why I'm brought here too, because a lot of this impact statements, these EISs are almost, when you look at the codes and you look at the reports and you look at the recommendations, the problem is that they're not following what they say. And these recommendations have been approved in a legal binding document for years, and it's still saying that we're okay, or saying that the water's okay, and then all the recommendations are not being followed. So there's policy, and then people or persons who are involved in running or, on the seat, on the table, they are practicing a whole different, and there's a difference between policy and practice. And in Hawaii, when you get to know, and there's a lot within the Aboriginal, religiously occupied Aboriginal system, we are very, it's hard for someone from outside to look inside, because we don't see the same.
Let me ask you a question. How can the Mauna Kea Authority, what can we do to gain trust that we're trying to do the right thing?
It's a tall order. I just explained it to you, right? It's a tall order. And it's not it's something that has been compiled for a long time.
Right, so, but what would you expect us?
Well, I'm just speaking of just my, just.
No, I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying, like, how can I be, not us,
I
but
think this is a first good step. I mean, to have this open conversation, like I just said, this is a first big step, because a lot of people don't know, a lot of people don't have the opportunity. So that's why I said it's not for us to come down here and shoot the messenger or shoot down the conversation. It's just to add in to the Manao, right? It's not to say we have the Manao. That's why, like, his expertise is invaluable to what he has done with his career and understanding of the laws and how things structure, just like your set of tools that you have accomplished. I think by everybody sharing these separate set of unique tools that you guys use throughout your guys' career, I think can weigh a lot on people's mind. A lot of Hawaiians or a lot of non-Hawaiians, and that's why I say, like, education, to open policies of talking about these things. I think that's the first step to even get to the next destination or the next step that we're trying to achieve. So I don't really have a blueprint of how you're gonna map it out, but I'm pretty sure that this is the right way. This is definitely the right step to have a conversation.
I have a question from the chat. Someone asked in the chat is, why does Mauna Loa not have a stewardship and oversight authority the way Mauna Kea does?
I can venture, I guess, not based on anything but my own opinion, is that the only facility up there that I know about is the Remote Observatory. Right? And so, and that's been there since in more years, since the 40s or something like that, yeah. And so there hasn't, so two things, one is there's not a community concern about overdevelopment. And it's not on the summit, on the most sacred part of the Mauna, which I think if they tried to go up and build buildings up there, we would all be standing on the road again. Because, you know, the summit of Mauna Loa has rescue things for us. And so again, I'm gonna say again, this isn't about being anti-science, right? It's about making sure that our sacred sites are protected. And I don't think the activity on Mauna Loa has reached anywhere near that temperature in the community. So there's no direct reason. And yeah.
It is no less sacred. It is no less sacred. It's
Right, but you know, like if you drive through, you can see the sun reflect on the facilities there, and they're about 2/3 of the way up there. So we know it's there. And they do good work for the whole universe, not just for measuring the atmospheric conditions. But I think if they try to build more up there, then, you know, they certainly would draw attention. So that's probably why there's no issue of conflict like there is on, which is why we're here. Well, thank you, whoever is watching. Wow.
That's a good question.
John, I want to go back to your first part of the, when you say expertise, like in boom, I don't know, I'm expertise, I've got some experience and so it's taught a lot. So I want to phrase this, try to phrase this away, not so much as my answer, but ask you if this is the right thing to do. What you described is a political issue in some ways. And if you see it as a political issue and try to get a political solution, then it takes its course that way. One of I've watched us try to have a political solution for our occupation my whole life, and it hasn't, nothing's emerged yet. And I'm not sure that our INA can wait for us to have a political solution. And so, and I worked for an institution 41 years ago, and when we had, at one point we had all Hawaiians in our leadership position who got to that position and saw their job as to kind of be the dominant force that, like every other corporate, right? It's like, so we were doing it to ourselves. Now that we were at the table, we didn't go back to kind of an ancestral view of ourselves, and that was adapted to this place that provided justice, for our people. We did what the other guys did before us, who were not, of our people. And so it told me that it's not just being Hawaiian that's enough. We get Hawaiians in there, but you don't just change the politics, you change the values. It's the values that matter. And it's just like when we talked to Pomai about AM, that sense of self-determination, we don't need somebody to give that to us. We need to assert it. We need to do it. When we assert our values, no matter who we are, where we came from, whether it's Benny Off or anybody else, so let's assert the values for the right reason and part of that is, as Bill says, going back to what does the identity? Let's, John, you frankly taking us to this, before we talk about telescope process, let's look at this model, let's understand this model and what's threatening it. And is it here for us or are we here for the model? And how do we express that in our policies and in our oversight, in our stewardship that goes right to our name? I think that's good. Well, does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
But
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you and, I'm sorry, I forgot, I didn't get your name earlier.
Kanoy.
Kanoy, okay, can I ask you both a question? Like, earlier when you were sharing that and then what you were saying too, like what I was trying to like share with you the first when you said that, did you, when you said, oh, you're off topic and it's not misinformation, did I say something that kind of
I
was
just
like?
got lost in the conversation because what I was talking about and then what you're going to correlate, you didn't really jive with what I was thinking.
Oh,
but I was-
when I was listening to what you were talking, I was trying to link it with your, what I liked is that, see, I like what you said because it's almost kind of like you're going into like, hey, before all the scientific stuff, let's sit down and talk about the first step like that. And like what he just said, let's not talk about politics. So that's what I was trying to share with you. Like, I think like that's where we need to start at. And like what earlier you were saying, like generational trauma. And that's what I feel is, and that's what I hear a lot from the community is just generational trauma. And they're so hurt because I realize that when the people here, like when they love, they love. But when they hurt, and everything just comes out like, you know, and so like I can connect with it and I feel like how can we even go to the next step, you know, to get them to be open or to
Right,
share,
that's
like
what
not
you
be the
was
politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like that. And then so that's where I was trying to ask, like, how can government or, you know, because government is trying to do what they can, but because of that trust that they don't, you know, people don't trust, so they're not, you know, like reaching out. So that's where I'm just trying to ask, but I'm sorry, I don't know if like, did I say something? Because all
No.
this thing that I'm saying
You give
is all here, it's like, it's all for my customer, because I'm not a government worker. I don't work for the government. I'm just a community person, just like you guys, and I'm like, you know, so I'm like, wait.
It's good. It was an opportunity for us to share.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
no,
don't think
but-
about it
Yeah,
like
because
that,
all of my,
because
okay.
If you hadn't had said what you said, then I wouldn't have had the
Okay.
opportunity to share what the generational trauma.
Okay, I'm not
You know, but
No,
no,
but-
but no, like trauma informed care, like to answer your question, that's what we run by and what we do it as our profession. And for us to be leaders or whatever leaders in this kind of capacities, I think that's what's lacking. You know,
To add to what Caroline is saying, kind of really evolve back to the imagery that with Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa. So the question that came from the chat was amazing because the imagery that comes from that is really a lot of what the trauma are. When you know the truth of something because you see it every day, right? You look at the two, you look at all of that, look at Mauna Loa, look at Mauna. You know inside of you what is coming. And then to know, right? Yes, government is working hard. At what? There's many levels of definition in the eyes of Kanaka. Right? And so I think that I love how you wrapped it up because it's kind of like a question, how do you want to monitor the secret? And I bring that to light because that's a great imagery as to the kind of intelligence that goes through us every day and we have to sieve through every day because you can see everything you see at the level of the moment. And then you can see the other mountains functioning. We have to temper that every day. And I think that that's a great, this is a great ground for that conversation. Because it needs to be said as part of the foundation and the substrate under our feet. Substrate has the capacity to move, right, and to be shaken up. We all felt that a couple times in the last 20 years, which is really good and it's healthy.
So maybe I can bring all this conversation back to authority. One of the remarkable things, and I say remarkable because we all understand what our political system is, the process of the legislature and the challenge. I don't know, I know there's all kinds of little sayings about what goes in and what comes out of two different things. But at any rate, the challenge of working through our own political system. For the authority to be born with with our purpose as stated in our law to protect Mauna Kea for future generations is remarkable to me. I would have never thought to have seen that come out of our government in my lifetime. And that is, and of course, there's all kinds of other things in there as well, which we have to put on the table and figure out how we manage all of this. That is a huge challenge. There's language about astronomy as a science. We can't just, under the laws of government at the moment, we can't just erase it. But we can manage it and we can say what it should look like. So, you know, that's the picture. There's talk about human uses, you know, about the authority having some ability to determine what carrying capacity is. How many people should be there? How many tourists should be there? And what should they do when they're there? So that's a big chunk that we're gonna have to look at. There is language that says we need to know and understand and take care of all the other elements of the Mauna, the conservation and natural resource piece, which is why those storm are so key to our staff, right? Because it brings so much of that information. And then there's a whole piece on education. We have to have an educational program. We need to have something that community can learn about our Mauna, and that, you know, and that it is an educational platform, as it should be, right? I mean, look, every fifth grader or sixth grader in Hawaii goes to Volcano National Park, right? Every single one. Well, somebody should be coming to Mauna Kea as well, and to learn about what Mauna Kea is and how important it is to us, not just, you know, the Volcano National Park. But there's several other these kinds of requirements that are in there. So for me, the authority has, we, the community, has this opportunity to shape the authority so that we can do those things. We can protect Mauna Kea for our future generations.
To add what I, you know, to me, the difference of Mauna Kea authority is the composition of authority, right? In terms of who gets appointed. So they're required to appoint a cultural practitioner. They're required to appoint a cultural practitioner that is a lineal descendant. They're required to appoint someone that has expertise in land and water use. Just because it's dealing with astronomy, they're required to appoint someone that is in the astronomy field. So for the first time, I tell people that government has created a organization where those people that didn't have a voice are required to be put on a decision-making body where they don't only have input, but they actually have a vote, right? I mean, who would think that, I always harassed her about getting arrested, that one of the leaders of the Kia'i will be appointed to help decide this issue. But one of the ideas behind the authority was to give voice to people that didn't have voice, but more than a voice, and this is what I try to protect all the time, they give her a vote, right? So she has more than input, she has a voice and the decision making. So to add to what Auntie Noy said, in addition to all the things I'm charged to do, the way that this is why it's a big experiment to me. And maybe we answer the question, and how we answer the question is going to be different from other governmental bodies just because of the makeup of the board. Yeah.
So speaking of our cultural practitioner seat, who did help stop a certain groundbreaking back like 10 years ago, everybody say hi to Lakila. Okay, so Lakila does have a comment, and what he says is, the main kuleana when it comes to management of the Mauna is managing the presence and impact of humans. human impact and presence have been heavy on Mauna Kea and in many proven cases negatively impacting. So it is our kuleana to do better, to protect and restore. And we must look and learn from past impacts and take responsibility to hold home. The truth is, the less human impact and presence, the less management would be needed. We must remember that we as a people are also part of government, and our involvement influences the policies. Our authority is a result of the movement of the people that demanded something must change and do better to help guide and support how we malama Mauna Kea. We were not formed just by the idea of a politician. We engaged in then and therefore guided a change from Mauna Kea.
I appreciate his consistency too, even today, if you were at the hearing today, you know, because of the hurricane, the 100-mile-per-hour winds blasting, knocking the paint off the building, he was wondering whether there was lead in the paint and whether it was creating a toxic issue, a hazardous waste issue that should be managed carefully. He was wondering whether the road system and how we use that landscape is accelerating erosion and causing runoff of plant. I mean, the value, consistency of values and the reassertion of values.
So you made the management, right? The management is the carbon footprint, right? So we was fortunate, the Rangers got to stay up there for the whole year to monitor our little space of Kuleana, which was the road. And the data that we compiled was astronomical. We were following the scale of how much the national park pays per head. We would be really over $1 million for just a year of us just sitting there and taking this count. So when we say management, that was a tough scale because some of the Hawaiians thought that we were blocking access. It wasn't blocking access, we were county college and other things. So we had that we had to face at some point within that year that we were there. But overall, we had to make it clear to them that we're not here to manage Hawaii. And that was one of the most anxiety feels that the community had. And that's where we met a lot of community members that was really concerned and said, hey, look at these Hawaiians, if they own the road, we should blocking the road, and we have the right to go up there with the county government lands. And we have to ensure that yes, those are county government lands, inalienable county government lands. We're here to make sure that if you do go up and something happens, we know what make truck, what model, how much air is in the ocean. We didn't take no names because I don't feel like that was our podium to manage people. But I think, yes, management going forward, there's going to be levels to that, right? DHHL has the first bottom sector, right? You guys are talking about the top. So before you get to the top, you got to come to the bottom. So there's these things that, yes, management, hard talk about management, especially Hawaiian management. I think that's where the grit's going to hit, is when we talk about Hawaiian management. Because yes, we don't like the carbon footprint, or we don't like how much tourists is going over, or just using the bathrooms along the road, right? Because we have to clean up a lot of that. So people who can't make it up to the bathroom, where they bathroom on the county government land. Where's Dylan? Where's everybody else? Nowhere to be found in the middle of 10 o'clock all the way to 7 in the morning or 6:30 for the first telescope workers go off. So there's a big gap of management. What kind of management, right? Is it just to tell people and mark our carbon footprints? Or is it going to be micromanaging? Right? Is it going to be around that clock? Because protection, Volcano National Park, we pretty much have that around the clock. We have people there watching, taking care, and making sure that everything is being maintained, and rubbish and all these things are being a big component of it. So yes, I think that's why I'm here too, is to hear, like, what is the management plan? We can have a plan of how we want to pristinely keep the top, but there's going to be people traveling up, a high volume of numbers of people coming up all around the clock. Some people are going to go together, do their ceremonial, do all that the cultural practices, but then how is that order? How are we going to order these things? Are we going to regulate or how we're gonna set the tone, right? And I don't think it comes from the crack of a whip. I don't think it comes from a form of a badge, or a gun. I think we have to win them over within the common understanding of our common life. I think we have to move people intellectually. I don't think we should move them and hurt them with cattle. But other people might have different views about it. And that's why I think this conversation and the things that Lanakila guys and other people who are watching, those are great comments and great thoughts to put in our brains to really consider. If we're gonna change and advocate for these rules, then we better prepare for everything that comes with being that management or perceived management of our Kuleana. And that's why, for me, it's not a political conversation, because when we're talking genealogy, we're talking Kuleana, and that's where I think it kind of draws the line that there is within the Constitution of water rights and who gets X amount of percentage. Because without that, I already know like OHA, because we've been engaging with OHA too, that they don't feel right about this management issue of how it's going to be operated. They feel like they're being voiced out. They claim to have 20% of the county government inventories. They're supposed to be monitoring this issue. So if they're not here, who's speaking up for the 20%? And that's where I think OHA and more the HHL, right, DNR, it takes more components than just astronomy and community within this, because we can't just say DHHL is invisible. They've been there, they let the gorge run, now they're spraying poison amongst the water lines. Then you have these other issues with not only the water, the poison, and then you have all of these access issues that we're discussing. So it's really like has to be divvied out correctly for the proper voices for these sectors that's unfortunately can't be here as often as a lot of us. But it's just something to think, like if this is the first round or the second round, I think this is definitely the spot to discuss these concerns. Because if we're just gonna go community and we're gonna go straight to astronomy, there's a lot in between that's gonna feel left out. And I'm pretty sure OHA is feeling that as we discuss and you guys have your meeting. And I think that's kind of like, gotta be mindful about just how we go about the process or how we decide to level it, right? And decipher it, because we're just talking management, talking astronomy. And there's just some things that we have to get through.
So can I suggest, John, maybe you can just share with everybody, because I'm sure they don't watch us on news during our hearing or our meetings, where we are right now in that process of being a consultant to start the management plan.
It's been really helpful to hear everybody at this particular time, because earlier Engineer Noy kind of recapped Kuleana that we have at the authority. That all needs to be channeled into the creation of a new master plan, a new management plan, and a new financial plan. Those kinds of planning efforts, in order to be fair to everyone in the community, will take time, right? So as we sit here tonight, the master plan may be 2.5 years away. Okay? And so at the moment we're evaluating, and have not made a recommendation to the board as yet, but the current plan that the University of Hawaii is operating under has gone through extensive community review. We won't get into the details of it, but even if we presume that 50–60% of that plan is still fair and functional, and that would put us 50–60% further ahead, right? And so we're evaluating that, but what's important about tonight's meeting is plans are plans, right? But the recurring theme is this original identity and indigenous identity that the Mauna has. Right? And so, and the values that Neil is talking about, the water cycles that provide life, the connection that lineal descendants, all of that now moves into a very high priority about how this plan will emerge. Because every time humans have fussed with fresh water, the flow of fresh water, we get in trouble. And this goes back, for me, like 30-something years in Waipio Valley, right? That every time we fuss with the flow above the valley, in the valley, something goes awry. And there's a reason why it's going to be important for us to, in the planning, begin to understand what the natural cycles were about. Right? And so we've got a ways to go. And so we've got that massive undertaking. And at the same time, we've got to order pencils and paper, right, to get this this new authority going. But we'll be able to get it done. But we're going to have to accelerate it going forward. But I can't tell you how valuable it is to sit in the opening question. I thought was ideal because it takes us right to kind of the essence of in foundational priorities that we need to get in place. And so Act 255 has a lot in it that we've got to unpack and repack and make sure that we get it done. But at the heart of it is a commitment by our board, commitment by the staff that the community has to co-author this. And we need to facilitate a process that will allow for honest communication to take place in a safe environment where everybody's respected. And so, I don't know if you want to add anything.
We get that. Tell me what you said about, in response to his question about the law. Tell me what you said about the law.
You know, yeah. I was asked in an interview a couple days ago about the OHA lawsuit, and my response was that there's a lot of people at OHA I know, we know, a lot of people I respect there. And that lawsuit was filed before I joined the authority. And I'm not completely clear how it got disjointed and why OHA is not here tonight. But within the last 6 months, there's been a new CEO appointed. So she and I are now in contact. We'll make second contact next week, Tuesday, at the CNHA convention. And then we've agreed to meet after the election because the makeup of OHA is going to change as well. But the idea that you need a lawsuit so you can protect the claims that you have against the state or the University of Hawaii, we believe is a flawed premise. That it's not necessary. We actually support your protection of the claims. And at the moment, we actually need your support and guidance, not the added distraction of a lawsuit. And the sense I got in talking to President Barrera is she agrees. And so, we're going to try and unpack that and see how we can get on with it. But their presence, frankly, is missed here. Also, next week, Tuesday, we're meeting with Director Watson from DHHL, who happens to be Neil's high school classmate. a school that didn't accept me. In the 8th grade. I wish I had generational trauma.
Going back to the management plan, and I really like you guys are measuring stuff. As the community, what's important to measure? Because that's gonna tell us, and water charge, you know, if we measure the degree of, we're recharging or the aquifer, that'd be one thing. The carbon, you know, footprint of our operation is another good, what are other good things to measure? Because then that'll go back to what we manage, what we oversee, and how we steward and what we're trying to improve. And it'll tell us whether we're winning or losing, right? We're gaining ground or making a positive difference or not doing our job.
I had something I was thinking about. There has to be more like our voice can be measured. Like our voices aren't being heard, because I think about all of our kupuna talking for years and years and years. And there's no end. How can these voices go unheard? It's because it's not being measured. And I guess you'd have to do a qualitative study. And you have to go out and that's the only way to get answer your question. If you want to get, because my 81-year-old grandma cannot come to these meetings, but how can my voice be quantified into a voice that represents 20 people? Because I am representing probably more than that today. But I'm not here to, you know, go on about that, but just the mere fact that all of our voices and some top voices, like our leaders, it's not quantifiable. I mean, it's unmeasurable. But it can be done. And it has to be done in a qualitative study, and someone's got to put together a thing. And our trusted source has to go out into the community and might have to go door to door if that's what it takes, because when it actually comes out, when you pull out the measurable voice that's been missing and not in the data, then you would know, and then you can do the thing and say X, Y, Z, and this is that, and put it in that report to reflect the exact number, because it's not in every report that includes every report, no, government report, every department, every agency, all no more. That's what's missing.
I do want to offer something. I mean, I'm kind of giving it behind the scenes, but I do have something that I do want to throw in there that kind of encapsulates several points that have been made. So when I first started this job, one of the first things that I did was I read the 2022 Comprehensive Management Plan update, which was an update of the 2009 Comprehensive Management Plan. And what it also included was an evaluation done by our very own DLNR chair, Don Chen, you know, Kuibalu, right? Because I believe she had a hand in writing the first one, right? So when they went back and looked at, okay, so what is working and what is not? Every single bullet point, every single aspect of this plan, and how was it improved on, you know, in the 2022 version. And this is to what Uncle John is saying about, okay, like whatever the percentage is that's actually solid, right? Whether it's 50, 70, you know, and the parts that were, what they found was that the conservation, the resource management, cultural and natural, you know, arthropod studies, you know, EV, all that was good. But the number one glaring, most worst part about it, guess what it was? Communication and outreach with the Hawaiian community and the community at large. These, I'm mostly a behind the scenes guy, but I try and make suggestions. And I will say that I did have a push firmly for these to happen because of what I read in that plan. And now part of the other thing about this is that when it comes to the nuts and bolts, day-to-day actual management, the rangers, you know, Justin and Kaleo and all the folks over at CMS, how hard they work up there, thin air, you know, reading that plan and down to, you know, Halikuhio, counting cars, right? You find surprising things when it comes to the actual problems, solutions, management, right? Cars, right? One of the things that they found about you know, where are the visitor impacts, these human impacts, is that one of the things they discovered is that, okay, tour vans are not the problem. Tour vans are part of the solution. Because the number one issue is you have people with rental cars driving wherever they like, whether they have four-wheel or not. And Bill had pictures, you know, what happens when you don't drive four-wheel, you end up in the bushes or in the rocks, right? But tour vans, the license, the CTOs, the commercial tour operators, because they have a license that they have to maintain. There's a limited number of tour vans, there's a limited number of tours. They are responsible for all those people that they bring up and bring down. They wrangle them, you know, that is actually how.
They also take care of each other, right? They're
Right,
also-
yeah, and then also help to enforce against the illegal tour operators who are up there operating without a permit. These are the kinds of measures that you have to put in, and you'd be surprised at what actually works, what the problem actually is, what the solution actually is. But this is the nitty gritty of the actual granular aspects of day-to-day management that unfortunately, and this is one of the things that I found most unfortunate, is that the whole conversation of TNT gets in the way of actually taking care of the place. That is an unexpected outcome of the TNT. Thanks, I don't mean to, you know, but this is one of the things that surprised me and actually been the most disappointing about trying to get this agency off the ground, coming from one of you, bro. You and me, we go back all the time, you know, but it's like, oh, everybody, TNT is the big bad, but there's not a whole lot of conversation about what it takes on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, in thin air, managing all these people. That's what we need to look at. Not worrying about the big eyeball boogeyman on top of the mountain that isn't even there yet. That's what stewardship is. That's what management is. Thank you.
Boy, that reminds me of when we were doing the working group. And this was my litany and say, this is a big job. Because of course, it all currently reports up to me and the CMS side. But I still remember the presentation we had about Kuakea. Some days I pronounce it much better than others. And they were saying, you know, they finally figured it out, right? They said, super awesome is super hard. And I have never forgotten that phrase that night when they said that, because I was thinking about, this is not easy work. I mean, it's not easy work what's going on now, the work the rangers do, the work the conservationists do. It's not easy setting up an authority. But if we really care about what we say we care about, it's worth the time and the effort. And so I really just appreciate not only what everybody has been saying, but, you know, particularly what, how you just kind of wrapped it up all together. It's a lot of work, but it's worth the investment.
And we get paid a lot of money to do this.
Right, to make sure everybody knows, we're not getting paid a cent.
My hair used to be black.
You still have. As a result, staff is gonna propose doubling your salary.
I just feel
No, John, you kind of frame it, and sometimes we feel that way when you're in the trenches, you feel the enormity of the responsibility and going fail, and it is a lot of work, but it's a huge opportunity. And believe me, I've been through figuring out rod and how we save our forests. That's a hard problem. You know, figuring out how we're gonna deal with human influences from around the planet, outside the planet, that's causing changes here. Those are hard problems. Figuring out what we do to ourselves here that seems like it's easier. And dealt with community schools and other organizations, that were on the brink of disaster, and our community can work together. There's brilliant stuff. And there's love in our community, we galvanized the amount of aloha aina that's for that mauna for Hawaii, that comes from, we've heard it already from people who were born here, but who come here and come to love it, and that's what we can marshal. And would you rather not have the opportunity? I'm lucky, we're old enough, we don't have to do this stuff, John. But we're doing it because let's try, let's give it a whack under our watch. It says,
There's something about the children are our future. That's just a bunch of adults who don't wanna dive in and deal with them. You know, you dive in and deal with it. So that's the opportunity. And yeah, gotta work, but it could be good work.
You know, we've got about 5, 7 minutes left. But I'm reminded as I'm sitting here tonight, I have my father's older sister, Auntie Emma was, one of the central kupuna in the Kaho'olawe movement. And, you know, to the extent that she went onto the island with the young ones back then were Walter Ridley and I asked her why she was so involved with this, and she's a generation removed or above Walter at that time. Her concern was that at that age, that younger age, many of us are oriented to political solutions. And she felt that the young ones needed to also focus on the spiritual purpose behind all of this. And not overinvest in political miracles to happen. And so tonight, the talk about water, Kanawai, the foundations, all of that is going to be extremely informative to us going forward. And my hope is that you will remain engaged with the authority. The authority is not only undertaking a massive assignment, but it's trying to design itself as it moves forward. And the only way it can design itself is to co-design it with the community. Not easy, but it's commitment and direction we're getting from the board. So thank you again for being here tonight. No, you want to make some closing comments?
I think Johnny wrapped it up. I really appreciate everybody who came from our community. I know I'm not thanking all of you guys from the astronomy area yet. Because it's part of your job. And so I appreciate that you're here as well. And I hope that you heard clearly, the voices that were here tonight. And I hope next time we get a little bit of time to hear from you as well. But this is important. And I hope for calling all your neighbors to be here, because I think they're just a small handful of first meeting. I hope this grows, and maybe we'll have to get, use the larger room next time we do something like this, but it really is important. And what John just said, and Neil and others, is that this authority will not survive and not flourish without the community. That's why it's being set up this way. And that message got heard loud and clear by the political leaders. When, if you recall, back in 2019, and a couple of years that followed, Mauna Kea became the most divisive topic in all of Hawaii. And so this is the solution that was offered by us as well as by our political leaders. And so now it's up to us, the community, to make it work and make it work for the reason that we all are here for, and that's to take care of it. So mahalo, really, for spending the time when we should be with your families and your tutu taking care of coming to spend this time. And I hope from that, the next time we will announce it'll be 3 months. It'll be 3 months to do this. And you don't have to wait 3 months, you have to reach us. You can call to Emma.
Follow us on Instagram.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
really mahalo, everything.
John,
Kind of echo what, Luana said. I think we we're gonna, move forward is the communication. A lot of, my belief is we are where we are, just communication. So we gotta have hard talks, we gotta have hard discussions. Communication doesn't mean, sometimes people say, oh, you're not listening to me. Not listening to me cannot be judged if I do what you tell me to do, right? So that's why I started this thing off by saying that we gotta listen to each other, right? And be empathetic and kind of understand where the other person is coming from rather than trying to respond. I'm a lawyer by trade, that's what we do. You say something, I try to come back at you, right? But that's not how you solve problems. So this is one way that we have to increase communication. We've opened to other ways to come and open communication. It means, and the other thing that's important to us is that we want to go out to the community and not expect, like many government agencies, that you gotta come to us. So if there's opportunity for us to go out to the community, to improve communication, to hear what people want to tell us, we're more than happy to go out to the community or to wherever to do that, right? So that this is a different way of doing stuff, right? But the whole idea is to increase communication, because one of the reasons why I'm doing this is that I don't like the divisiveness from, I don't, that's not Hawaii. That's not what Hawaii that all of us love, right? But how do we become less divisive? And I don't know what the answer is. But as Neil said, this is an opportunity for us to try to figure out how we can move forward in a less divisive way. So thank you again, for all of you for attending. We really appreciate it. Like I said, and Andy Moyer said, we want to grow this so that one, I stood up with John, that our goal is the next time we have to use it. I don't know if you've seen the next room, but the next room is like 3 times this size. We want to fill the room up to have these conversations in a respectful way and exchange ideas. So thank you again.
John, thank you. You're actually a recovering attorney.
The communications part, I just want to add to that. If you haven't had the opportunity to sign in this evening, please do so. And leave that email address for us as well, so that we can communicate out what we may need to reach those of you that have joined us tonight and going forward. So please, if you haven't had the chance, please sign in, give us an email address or any way to reach you, so that we can, when the time comes, and we'd like to, when we need to, we can come back to you folks.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. All the email addresses that I take down on these sign-in sheets get added to the board and the meeting notifications that go out. So every time there's a board meeting and every time there's one of these I send out to everyone who signs in. So, yeah, thank you very much.
So, Mike, can I ask you to offer a closing bullet?
We're gonna do Pule Ololo Eating Circle online. We hope that all of you, all of the things that you do in your day, evening, and hours of your life, and that everybody can see you. didn't. Oh, you're.